Okay, class 10. Part 1 here should be very much a review. We're just going to talk about the classic inheritance hierarchy. In C++, we do basic inheritance with the colon and a public. All right, so colon, public is an is a relationship. So here we have class triangle is a shape. Here's the class shape. I'm just leaving that empty. Class triangle is a shape. We would say that's a subclass. It's inherited. It's a parent-child class. Okay, we know how this works. So here's how it might look in a game. So let's say we have a game component and there's a subclass of that called a drawable game component. And maybe there's a more specific version called an actor. So we have actor is a drawable game component. Drawable game component is a game component. And then we have three concrete versions. We have a ship is a type of actor. We have an asteroid is an actor. And we have a missile is an actor. So we have three different versions and three different subclasses of actor. And then they just inherit on up the chain. It's very simple, easy to follow, easy to deploy. This is simple. The downsides, though, they do tend to explode a bit. When you think about all the different things that end up in a game, you start getting out of control pretty fast. Another problem that we get is something that we call the bubble up effect. Let me give you an example. Let's say we have a base class called a physics object. Maybe that inherits from something, but this is the common base for these three types: a crate, like maybe you can knock a crate off a table or something and it reacts with physics. Or there's this floating buoy that bobs in the waves in the ocean. And then there's this destructible object where you shoot it and it breaks into pieces or something, right? Okay, and so naturally what someone's going to do is they're going to say, hey, I love that buoy effect. I want to knock a crate off a ship and then have it float using that buoy effect. And then they'll look at you like, what's the big deal? You made the buoys work. Why can't you do that with the crate? And then you find yourself, you're looking at this hierarchy going, but crate, the floating is over here, and what am I gonna do? And so this is what you do. You bubble up. You take the floating behavior and you move it up into the base class. And now all physics objects have this floating behavior. And if some things don't float, but yeah, what about all these things that aren't supposed to float? Well, then you just put a flag on there. You put some kind of Boolean, oh, is it floatable? And you set that to false. And if you set it to true, then that thing floats. So we'll call that bubbling up. I always like to give the example of Command and Conquer. In Command and Conquer 3, the engine was designed, the game was designed so that everything was a game object. And I don't mean everything was a subclass of a game object. I mean, we bubbled up literally everything into the base class game object so that everything was literally a game object. So a tree, that was a game object. A building, that was a game object. Infantry, game object. Everything. And so there was units that can turn invisible. So that was just a flag on the base thing, and trees had it. You could make the tree turn invisible by saying stealth equals true on the tree. Right. And and it's a silly example. It avoids this it embraces this bubble up concept. But there's actually another reason to do that in that case, is they wanted every game object to be the exact same memory footprint so that you could put them into an array, right? You could put them in a pool. Okay, but yeah, that's taking it to an extreme. Here's another reason why inheritance can be a problem. So let's take your base class vehicle, and we have cars and trucks and motorcycles, and then we have the boats, right? The water vehicles, boats. Naturally, Mr. Producer is like, well, you got the cars and you got the boats. I want a hovercraft that can do both. Wouldn't that be awesome? And you go, yeah, that would be awesome. Only I can't do that with this code, because what am I supposed to do here? I mean, you could do this. And C++ kind of allows you to do this. You can do multiple inheritance. You can say that the amphibious vehicle is a land vehicle and it is a water vehicle. But then you get what we call the inheritance diamond, which, we call it a diamond for obvious reasons. You've inherited vehicle twice, and you really didn't want that. I guarantee that's not what you wanted. So that's something you want to avoid. So how do you avoid it? Well, you can bubble up the water behavior up to the base class, right? That's what you end up doing. Or maybe we'll look into solving this using a whole different method. Let's look at components.